We're gonna do it like this.
Hell yeah, we're going to do it like this.
Okay.
I have always thought that Terry would look great in a gimp suit. I've always thought about that. I've always thought
that's not the narration that
Now,
I was
what is it you
going
asked
for.
right before we started this here? Something about Daddy Terry. I think we need to discuss. We need to discuss Daddy Terry about this, okay?
We do not. We so do not.
Now I see the Blue Oyster Bar from Police Academy.
But
Yeah.
You know, there were so much
The words that
80s
have come
screen
out of my
damage.
mouth for money.
Yeah. Opening lines threw that under the bus.
see what Bug did? She cut me. I was bleeding.
Well, sometimes you got to cut a Terry.
Ooh.
Okay,
Tell me more.
That's the whole other side of things. Damn.
We are definitely sinking into the dregs immediately during this show.
His blade is sharp and long.
And he sheaths it oh so professionally.
Help. Help. Oh my goodness. Help.
She says in her best child voice.
Help! Help! Help!
That wasn't even the child voice. Oh my god, we're in so much trouble. No, help. Get us out of here.
That's what most of our viewers are saying right now.
Don't worry, viewers. All you have to do is hit the hang up button. Disconnect! Disconnect! Punch out, Porkins! Punch out!
Are you calling me Porkins? Who's playing Porkins?
Julius.
It's up on cue. It's up
It
on cue.
was perfect. It's like, oh, I'll do it.
Well, I'm glad I could start the show off with throwing hand grenades. That's always fun. Howdy, folks, and welcome to another episode of the Dead Robot Society. I'm Paul E. Cooley. Joining me today, Veronica Jagger and Terry Mixon, as always. And how the hell are you two, anyway?
Ugh.
Tired. If I'm gonna say in proper Southern, tired.
I'm very tired.
I'm tired. So tired.
Why are you tired?
I picked up a bug. It's not a cute fluffy one like Terry has, but like I did not sleep well last night. I ran a fever. It was not pleasant, and I was up for a long time. And you know, like when you get sick and you have that rapid run of, oh my gosh, what could this be? I think in the space of like 15 minutes, like, is this COVID? No. Is this the flu?
It's Ebola.
No. Well, there wasn't enough blood, so it couldn't have been Ebola. I figured it's just sometimes you get so exhausted, your body revolts
Says I've had
for 24 hours.
What a revolting development.
Yeah, so I've been spending the day just being lazy and recovering.
Fair enough.
But yeah, got some more bits and pieces of writing done this week. I did start recording stuff for my Patreon, so I have that in the can. And because my authors haven't gotten me scripts yet, or rather, I have. Well, one push a deadline back a week, and then another I have a pronunciation guide because fantasy always has a bunch of strange, yeah, and I want to make sure they're pronounced properly because we do not want to piss off the fandom. I just no. So waiting to get those words back so I can do more recording, but I did a lot of research for the Patreon, got some good public domain titles, realized that some of the titles I thought I started reading through, and I'm going to look at the rules on derivative works, because these were written in the 30s and 40s, and some of the language and characterization, it does not add to the story. And so if
that's true of a lot of stuff in that time frame.
Yeah. So if it doesn't add to the story, if there's a way that I can edit it and make it.
Is it in the public domain?
It is. All the stuff I found is in
Then
the
you can do anything you want to it.
and that's my thought. I can, gender swap a couple things so that the cast is not just a little more diverse, but it also suits my voice. And I can fix some characterizations, which is just nice. But
You can rewrite it from the ground up. Once it's in the public domain, it is fair game for anything that you choose to do to it, no matter what, bar none.
yes, but time. And so it's
time
a
and
case
effort.
of going, what can I do now? What can I record now? What can I set aside as a project for later? And I've got some, I mean, it's good stuff. It's good pulpy sci-fi from the 30s and 40s. I just need to clean it up so that it fits better in our current time frame. And current
Personally,
sensibilities.
I would like to take, if it was in the public domain, completely in the public domain, Edward Doc Smith's Skylark of Space.
That's what I'm doing.
It is.
That's what I have.
I love that series. That's one of the very first series that I got into. But unfortunately, just like you noticed, it's got all these problematic things about it,
It does.
that really detract from the story. But I really want to know what Richard Seaton's up to. I really want to see Dr. Duquesne. How do you pronounce that?
Duquesne.
Duquesne. When I read it the first time, it was Duquesne. I was like, what kind of name is this? I don't even know.
And that was exactly the one. So I have the fourth one in that series. In the series, is not in the public domain because the copyright got renewed. But the first three are, and so I got those and I started reading through and formatting them, and there was too much language in there that needed to be fixed. And if I've got to fix some of the language, then why not fix additional things?
Here's a very important thing for you to keep in mind. It really depends on where you get the text for that document, for that story.
Mm-hmm.
The serialized version of Skylark of Space is in the public domain. The one that was in the magazine.
Yes, that's the one I
The
have.
one that was in the novel is not.
So I have the serialized version from Project Gutenberg. So it's the original publication.
That's very important not to fall for that trick. The one in the first novelization of it was better put together and did not have as many of some of the rushed flaws that the one in the story did. It still had all the problematic elements in it, but it was better put together word-wise. But you got to be careful with something like that stretches one leg into each boundary, that you don't inadvertently get something that's still under copyright.
Yeah, and I made sure that I checked all the footnotes and whatnot, and it's the original 1930s.
I don't know if it's in the public domain or not, but another one you might consider is the Lensman Saga.
Ooh.
It is not. I think I remember looking at that, and it's not quite yet in the public domain.
It is an excellent series from roughly maybe a little later than that, but it falls into that same pulpy goodness as Skylark.
Let's see.
I know of Lensman. I've never read it.
Oh,
I read it years and years ago. Good stuff. It's got some of the problematic elements because the women are secondary characters. It's not as bad as Skylark is in some ways. It's not as blatantly racist. Like, gosh, what is the servant's name? I've forgotten his name. Shiro. They don't treat Shiro like dirt because he's Japanese. They don't treat him like just your servant. It's Skylark is a little bit better in how it treats people.
I mean the Lensman.
Lensman, excuse me.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the first Lensman is in the public domain.
Even the novelization?
Let me look.
Oh, sorry. I'm still on Skylark. Never mind.
It's okay. But yeah,
I'm not sure that it was ever serialized. I don't know.
Yeah. But it's anyway, going back to that.
If you're looking at something that's in the same vein, that one may not be a bad choice to go with because it actually may have a broader appeal to an audience than Skylark.
Okay. Well, been doing research and recorded a handful of, I decided, at least for intro things that I know well. And my other bit was looking for public domain stuff that is often used for the AP English Lit and Composition classes. So stuff that students have to read, because then I can say, hey, if you're a teacher and you're teaching this and you've got folks who want to listen to it, then, you know, here's not just a virtual voice reading it, here's a free one. So there are 3 books which are covered. Yeah, the Project Gutenberg has a lot of stuff, which is where I start looking. And it's got 21 different E.E. Smith titles there. So it's got the First Lensman, it's got Gray Lensman, and Second Stage Lensman. So it's got those 3.
See, what he's saying is true there. A lot of the early story was serialized,
Mm-hmm.
and it was eventually collected in a novelistic type way. But the serialized stuff that sets the stage for it, where you get to meet Mentor from Aricia and all of these people that are important to the story, good stuff.
Okay.
Was that Lensman? Yes, that was Lensman. Sometimes I get Lensman and the other one confused a little bit. It's been decades since I've read either of them.
Yeah, and literally I was just going through and skimming and fixing like formatting. But
I like
yeah.
the pompous way that Mentor of Aricia speaks in the book. Youth! Everything is in like capitalized letters. You air youth.
Awesome. Yeah.
What
But-
a dick.
But yeah, so I have a list of different titles that I know I can do.
Did you ever read
Short
Grand Central Arena by Reich Spoor?
No, I didn't. Not
Because it is taking the public domain aspects of the Lensman and creating a brand new story about it. Totally different than what it was, but it has Mark C. DeQueen in it. He is basically a computer construct in living form, because people created people that were out of novels and raised them in a AI environment. And so it's all baked into this as part of the storyline. So I remember suggesting it to you. It's an excellent book. It's got like 3 or 4 novels in it now, and it's real fun to read because it has that same kind of stylistic choices of telling the vast adventure stories. And you can see how someone else has taken something in the public domain and made it theirs.
Okay, so what is it called again?
Grand Central Arena.
Okay, Grand Central Arena. Okay, so yeah. Adding it to the list. Currently listening to A Discovery of Witches. The first book in the All Souls trilogy, because I started binge watching the series on Netflix because Portal fantasy fun stuff. I'm good for it. And it's well written. I'm having fun with it. Although it's weird. The book is weird because it alternates between first person narration and third person narration.
I remember reading through, just looking at books that were recommended to me, and I read the blurb for Grand Central Arena, and I saw the name Dr. Mark C. DeQueen and Duquesne, and I'm like, my brain screeched to a halt and go, that cannot be chance. That cannot be chance.
Yeah, clearly this project has legs and I need to think about it. But yeah, so the ones I started to record Edgar Allan Poe stuff. So Edgar Allan Poe short stories, because I know them.
Mm-hmm.
Because oftentimes the narrator in those stories is very nebulous.
Yes.
So the first one I recorded was The Cask of Amontillado. And yeah, I do Creepy Unhinged really well. We'll just leave it at that. I had way too much fun with that. But looking at stuff like that, I've got some classic romance titles on the list. So essentially, until I get these scripts from people, that's what I am working on. because I've got to get stuff done, and I'm still crocheting things. Which I
Yeah,
like.
we'll talk about getting this stuff done later.
Eh. So Terry, what about you? In between
Well-
dealing with Julius.
We got the fence completely installed yesterday, so it is done.
Wow, that was fast.
It took them 4 days instead of the 2 that they indicated they were going to do it, but it's done. It's pretty. It's well put together. I like it. Today, we got the stair lift in, so it's fully installed. So now my wife can come upstairs without worrying about falling down the stairs, and I won't have to worry about her.
Excellent.
That means that now that it's installed, the home renovation can begin, because that was the holdup. So now we have to pin them down on dates to start tearing out the downstairs bathroom.
Chaos will ensue. Yes.
I will have to take all of the cats and secure them upstairs. They will not be pleased.
No, they probably will not be. Probably not.
I am, pushing the edge of how much I can take time away from my writing and still get this book done on schedule. I'm going to be pushing it as it is. I'm going to have to put a lot of more hours into it to get it done.
I know that feeling.
Yep.
It's due to be turned in on the 22nd of this month.
Oh,
Oh, 3 weeks.
I've written 10,000 words.
So that's just what, 15,000 words a week?
No, that's more
3,000
like
words a
8 or 9,000 words a day. Then I got to edit it at the end. So what could possibly go wrong?
Your brain will be
life.
mush by the end of it. That's what will
It
happen.
probably will be, but I've got to put my foot down with myself and do the writing. It's got to take place.
I hear that.
Even if they're busy making lots of noise downstairs and I have to go back and edit out "fuck" out of the middle of my work because, I keep saying it because they're like making lots of noise. Or it catches them saying "fuck." I don't know. It could be
You'll have
both.
to find a different word. You have to find a different word that will be really easy to like search and replace. That just sounds really bizarre.
Well, you see, one thing about Dragon is that it doesn't do curse words. If you do a curse word, it changes it to something else. It's got built-in rails to keep me from, dropping the F-bomb.
oh
you
my
just need to think
God!
of
I would
another-
never be able to use this hunk of shit. No.
Well,
Fuck
that's what you have to
that.
come up with another word. Like my go-to when I'm out in public, when I can't like swear, is biscuits. For whatever reason, it's not it's biscuits.
Wait a minute. You can't swear
in public? Depending upon who I'm around, no. Because
We're in
there
our
are days
50s. We just stopped giving a shit.
if the dam breaks, all the vocabulary comes out. No one
Yeah.
is ready for that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, let's see. I finished. Saculina is with the beta reader. I went through one final pass of Oceania and trying to coordinate with my designer on when we can get that laid out and design the cover for it done and all that garbage. And I've been bashing my brain against the wall for trying to figure out what this next book is. So this is the first time I've ever been at a loss for what to write. It's kind of scary. So I'm still dealing with that little problem. And 3 days after getting a family member out of the hospital, they're back in again. So it's been another week of hell. I haven't been at my desk for more than maybe 4 or 5 hours this last week, seems like. So I haven't been getting anything done really, which is ticking me off immensely. But good news is said family member is doing better. They're getting things under control, and hopefully they'll be out on Monday, maybe Tuesday, depending. We'll see. But there's going to have to be a lot of changes in life because there's oxygen involved and all sorts of other shit. So the transition is probably going to take a while, and then I'm going to have to drive to a lot of doctor's appointments. My sister jokes that I'm going to be the parent's chauffeur, so it's going to be interesting, to say the least. But other than that, things are going okay. I think, maybe, perhaps. I need to invest in bourbon. I just don't have enough bourbon on hand. So I'm going to have to make that happen at some point when I can afford to drink, which is not now. But anyway, that's where things are. It's been fun. Now,
Fun.
it's funny that Terry brings up deadlines. It's funny that V brings up getting stuff done. Because she is talking about starting Patreon. Started a Patreon, more or less. She just hasn't probably hit the submit button yet. But
I've got to figure out graphics, and I'm still noodling on tiers and what I should and shouldn't do, or what I could and couldn't do. I guess maybe that.
we'll get
Could,
to that
would,
in a
should.
minute too.
Oh, good.
So basically, I got a Patreon. Terry's got a Patreon. V's going to have a Patreon. I've also got BMAC, and I've got, DRS as well. So, in case you didn't know, some listeners, viewers, I wrote a series called Garaga's Children, or Children of Garaga. And it takes place through different periods of time in history, has no repeat characters. Sometimes they're referenced. But it has no repeat characters. People will read it, love it, but nobody will read it. It's not sellable. It's not marketable for whatever reason. It just does not work.
Caveat: the Venn diagram of categories it can be in crosses a lot.
Yes, it
and
crosses a lot of
therefore it's
genres.
very difficult to target in the mainstream.
So, my original plan was to write Crusaders of Garaga, which was going to be about take place during the First and Second Crusades. And I really want to write this book. I still want to write this book. It's been bugging me for over a decade. And God, it's been bugging me for 15 years now, I guess. But I haven't written it because guess what? It doesn't sell. And I don't have time to write things that don't sell at this point because I'm a money-grubbing whore. I have to be. I have bills to pay. So I've been going after the stuff that I know is much more marketable, except for Derelict, which was not marketable. That's beside the point. But basically going into those genres because the money was there. And it hasn't been a bad thing. I've enjoyed what I've written. It's just I wish I was writing something a little more prescient. And something that allows me to go dig into history and do that kind of thing because I really love the historical books. I just hate historical fantasy. Drives me nuts.
I'm
don't
sorry,
ask.
what are you writing?
Something completely different than that?
No, one could argue that, I mean, not that we're here to debate the subgenres of your books, but one could argue that some of those would be historical dark fantasy.
Yeah, I would get that. Dark fantasy being the trick.
Yeah, but if you're looking for the earmarks of what constitutes fantasy versus sci-fi versus whatever in those broad chunks, sorry, dude, it's fantasy.
Yeah, whatever.
There's just no unicorn. There's just no unicorns.
Just keep fighting against it, Brandison. Just keep fighting against it.
Brandison?
Brandison, you're now officially
Coulson.
Brandison.
Jesus Christ. So fun. Anyway, so I really want to write those, and I want to get to a point where I can afford to write them. We talked about passion projects before. I mean, Derelict didn't sell worth a shit, but I was going to finish that book because I love the universe I created and I love what I was trying to do with it, and I kept writing it despite the bullshit that went on with it. I'm in a place now where I can't really afford to do that, unfortunately. The black books sell, they're everything, and I try and put as much as, whatever I want to in there as much as possible to talk about more weighty things than just an oil monster chasing people. But it doesn't have a lot of opportunities for some of the things I'd like to talk about. I have to find other stories for that. And those stories probably won't sell as well as the black. Probably never, which is fine. That's just the reality of it. So the money or art question comes in. When can you afford to actually do that art project? Because the books you write that are marketable are the ones that make you money. When do you take the time to take some of that money and invest in your art? And the two things might not be inseparable for you. But I think there's a certain level of, depending on what you're doing, that it does turn into a question of, are you doing this for art or money? And the art problem is you're going to be broke.
Yeah.
For most people, the art thing is you're going to be broke. And, folks who don't depend on their art for their living are in some ways much more free because they can do whatever the hell they want. And for some of us, you can't necessarily do that. So you kind of have to make a decision. So at what point do you feel comfortable enough to go work on that art piece? Is it something you can work on for a long period of time over stretches when you have nothing else to do? Is it something that you really have to carve out, 3 to 6 months to do research on all this bullshit before you put pen to page, digital pen to page? What do you do? Don't answer at once.
Well, so it reminds me, I'm going to go into a film reference here. So it reminds me of something that I had heard about George Clooney. And not only is he an actor, he's also a director. And he's put up some very, I guess, popcorn kinds of films. And he's also put up some really in-depth kinds of films. And the reason for that balance is because he's using those popcorn films to fund those passion projects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12, Ocean's 13. Those are comfort watches for me. I will happily sit down.
And they all made $1 bazillion.
And they made $1 bazillion. Are they great? No. They're a little far-fetched, but those movies allowed him the breathing space to make other more artsy movies that did not make as much money. And so it's not a bad thing. It is definitely not a bad thing when you've got to balance this is a job and I'm going to get through it versus I love this, I want to do it forever. I have those with what I narrate.
Right.
Yes, I can pick and choose some projects, but there's some things I'm doing it because it's a job. And I want to be able to get that money so that I can fund other stuff. And it's difficult because you don't always like doing it. And even when you're writing, sometimes especially if you're on contract, if it's what you want to do and you're fortunate enough, being on contract often means you have to submit that outline and stick to it.
Yep.
Or at least stay within the fences that you've established. And if you get bored with it, sorry, you promised it. And you've got to figure out how to get through it.
Yeah, I've been there before where I basically turned down an audio project because I started reading the words and I was just like, I can't narrate this. This is just awful. I can't narrate this. It would have been worth $1,000, but I could not do it. I could not in good conscience do it. So I just didn't. Terry, do you have anything artsy in your brain?
I am a workman. I have nothing artsy in my brain.
Do you have anything that you would want to write that you're not sure? Like you would be completely writing for yourself. Nobody else, you're not sure if anybody else would really read it.
Well,
it would work for you, but it might not work for your main audience.
It probably wouldn't work because I've written a post-apocalyptic, had a great fun writing it, but it sold worth shit. It did not sell at all. I've written 3/4 of a lit RPG novel, enjoyed it. I listened to Little RPG for fun, but I doubt very seriously I'd make any money at it.
Oh,
Ooh. Sorry. Go for it.
pen name time. James
It's not a
says.
matter of a pen name time. I would share everything with the audience that I currently have. If they're interested, they're smart enough to figure out if whether it's for them or not. Don't treat your readers like they're idiots. Put out your work under your own name, and they can make the decision if that book is right for them or not.
Yeah. The only reason I would say if you've got to use a pen name is if the genres, if you're writing across wildly different genres and your also reds are not going to jive. Like if Terry suddenly decided to write, alien romance, it's probably not going to cross over with the military sci-fi space opera vibe he's got going. Even more so for Paul, because while the Black does have tentacles, they may not be the same kinds and have the same emotional reaction as would come up in an alien romance. So in those cases, you might go for a pseudonym. But like Terry said, if you're pretty much staying within the same gross circle, the bigger circle, there's no need for it.
Does the research angle of a period piece like Crusaders of Garaga make you hesitate as well? Not really. Not really. Because I'm not trying, the stuff that I'm talking about would not be chronicled. So basically all the stuff that's going on can be factual, that's going on around what's going on, so to speak. But I wouldn't be using historical figures except by name. The only part of that book that really irks me is the fact that I have to learn how horses work. And there are some things about armor I'd probably need to know. So I would need to study that kind of stuff, which annoys me because it's boring. But I need to know what it is, so if I need, if I include something, I know what I'm talking about, at least tangentially. So I don't look like a complete moron. But the... historical fiction readers can be as demanding as Gunner Horse Peoples. Mm-hmm. That's part of the problem with the Children of Garaga. It's got that same deal. If somebody's really versed in Mesopotamia, they can go, but, or hey, you chose to say Julius Caesar burned down, the library. That's not really what happened. Which library? Well, I get that. I went with the Apocryphal. Mm-hmm. And I say that in the author's note. And I admit to that. So it's basically... the research stuff excites me because I love to know about those periods of time and what those historical figures were up to, the popes, the anti-popes. There was so much intrigue going on in that area, in that era, I should say, that you have just so much crazy that you can include and that shapes the events that your characters are working through. Are we talking about the siege of Jerusalem? Okay, here's what was going on. How are my characters going to deal with that? Because they're trying to get into Jerusalem or they're trying to get out. What are the kinds of problems they would run into? Those things would be really interesting to me to try and, weave my way through that. Now, granted, with that, I might need to call on some experts or read a whole lot of material to get it right. But that wouldn't change what my characters are doing. It might change how they're doing it, but wouldn't change the environment they're in because we're talking about cultists and all sorts of other crazy shit that's going on in the underground Jerusalem and people trying to get in there and grab this book. So there's a lot of different things that could happen there that I really like and would really love to play with. Because I can talk about Judaism, I can talk about Christianity, I can talk about Islam, I can talk about all the places that those things match up, where they diverge. And, there's a lot of different things that you can do there, and it'd be a lot of fun. But the research doesn't necessarily scare me. Horses scare me. Firearms can be scary, because I don't know enough about them, and I admit that.
We have Terry for that.
I know, I have Terry for that. And I'll fuck up every now and then.
Just don't put a safety on a Glock and you're good.
Yes, something like that.
Yes. The big things.
Yeah, the big things.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of fun in writing historical fiction from that standpoint. I got to learn a whole bunch of crazy shit about Babylon and Sumer and et cetera, and even Alexander the Great while I was researching all that stuff. So it was a lot of fun. And creating those characters and those eras and going through and describing the kinds of things that they would do. Like most people don't know that the Greeks shadow boxed as one of their exercises. And they would always swim. They loved swimming. So why wouldn't the Library of Alexandria, it was right there on the coast, why wouldn't it have a swimming pool? Why wouldn't they be out there training every morning, shadow boxing or doing gymnastics or whatever else? Because that's what they would have been doing. So it's just little stuff like that I find really interesting. But
research
can be
takes
a concern.
time, though.
It does take time.
That-
That's
that-
the thing.
Yeah, that's what always scares me with certain ideas that I have is I to get it right or to know, even if it doesn't go on the page, it needs to be, I need to understand enough to put the characters in that time frame with all of the right little references. But you can get sucked into research so
Oh,
fast,
yeah.
and then
Oh,
it
yeah.
becomes, it's less about what you need to write the story and more about, this is so fascinating, I have to learn more. And it's that line of, you're supposed to write, but research is easy compared to writing, and you're still technically working.
Yeah, one of the worst parts about that is you have all this really cool research that you'd love to include in the book, and 99% of it isn't applicable in any way, shape, or form to the story.
Yep.
Which is
Yep.
why you end up with George R.R. Martin with 30 pages about Bannermen and their fucking history. Nobody cares. But that's the kind of thing that gets included that just drives me absolutely stark raving bonkers. James says, you seem pretty knowledgeable about boats, the ocean. Is that research or firsthand? Both. I've been out on when I was in Boy Scouts. Yes, I'm an Eagle Scout, believe it or not. I know the Boy Scouts of America has said that disavowed me multiple times. But they had something called Sea Base. And Sea Base, you go out on a 110-foot power sailor for a week and go all over the Florida Keys and the Dry Tortugas and go snorkeling and fishing and, you name it, learn how to sail the boat. And it was a large boat. And when I went there the second time, I was 17. The first time I was 13. Second time I was 17, and I actually got to help the first mate, bring up the sails, the windlass, all that kind of garbage. So I got to learn a little bit more about the boat. But it's been a long time, so I had to do a lot of research for Medusa Zone and some of the stuff for the Black, because I couldn't remember exactly what everything was named and what everything did. So, you can say, oh, weigh anchor. Well, a real sailor is going to be like, what the fuck are you talking about? You go to the windlass. It's little stuff like that can kind of bite you. So I try and stay clear of that as much as possible. And if I don't know, I'm not going to put it in the book. I'm going to ignore it and move the fuck on. I'd rather people think that I know what I'm doing rather than me prove I don't. So.
It is better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to open one's mouth and prove it.
Prove it. JR says one shortcut to research is to have a SME, a subject matter expert. Yes.
Smee, I'm pretty sure that's the guy from Pirates of the Caribbean.
That's SME.
Nope, that's from
and
Peter
it's Peter
Pan.
Pan.
That's Captain Hook's first mate.
Smeed. James says, didn't Stephen King say he just wrote gun or similar and then marked it for adding in details later when he could check the details? That wouldn't surprise me.
No, and that's actually a really good strategy, because then you're focusing on telling the story rather than getting hung up on details. I am learning how to do that with my own stuff, because I want to get words on the page. So if there's something that I need to learn more about, I'm writing in cursive. Whatever I need to know gets printed in big block letters. I will take care of it later. It's just, and it's because I know I will go down a rabbit hole, and a half hour later, I'm like, shit, I should have been writing. Ugh.
I mean, the first question you got to ask is this really important to the story? If it is, then obviously you need to do your homework. If it's not, get the Cliff's Notes.
Mm-hmm. and the other, I guess the corollary to that is who is relaying the information, because you don't necessarily need to know how everything works if all of the characters are just describing what they're seeing or what they're feeling. I don't necessarily know how a bowling pin setter works. If I absolutely need to, I know a guy, and I can say, hey, can you take me back behind things and, give me a quick half hour explanation. I'll bring cookies. And that should be enough.
I actually got a chance to go into the back of a bowling alley and have that very thing explained to me, and they're not going to need half an hour. They're going to need 5 minutes. That's it.
I'll still make cookies, but I probably won't need to. I won't need to do that, because with the knowledge base of the character I'm writing, they don't need to know that. They just need to know what they see and the effects of what happens.
And the other part of it is they already know what this stuff is. So why would they spend a whole lot of time thinking about it?
As you know, Bob.
Yeah. If I know how to fire a rifle, I'm just going to pick up the rifle and pull the trigger. I'm not going to sit there and necessarily describe every part of the rifle, because who gives a shit?
Right.
Unless there's a certain detail about that matters, it just doesn't matter.
Unless you're emphasizing that the person that is having it explained to them is a neophyte and that actually is important to the story, then you probably should avoid that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. If I have a character who doesn't know how to raise a sail, right, and they need to do that later on, it needs to be explained to them at least a little bit. By
That's where you have that guy go, weigh anchor! You're an idiot.
Yeah, you're an idiot. Go press the windlass button.
The button.
JR says, counterpoint, those details can inform the story and decisions you make, enough to make you take a right turn and go left. Sometimes those research details are critical. Yes, it all depends on the story and what you need for the story and what the characters need to know. Mm-hmm. A character is going to know if they've got a flare gun and they're checked out on all this stuff with U.S. Coast Guard, they're going to know how a flare gun works. They're going to know where to fire it. They're going to know those kinds of things.
Paul has made something of a career out of offending people with Space Marines, so he should go ahead and branch out into explaining weapons and how they work completely wrong so he can outrage a new segment of the population.
You're an
I
asshole.
support this. But no, Paul, you bring up a really good point. A lot of the times where stuff gets explained in a story is because your expert is not able to execute whatever duties, and they have to go explain things to the poor schmuck who has all of their limbs, or is not, dealing with a concussion, or is not tied up somewhere. So
how do I use the plasma cannon?
Look down the barrel and make sure things are clear, then pull the trigger. Bob, you did cut away from your head before you pulled the trigger, didn't you, Bob? Bob!
Bob's not here anymore, man.
As James says, it's classic James Bond and Q. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's see. JR says, sometimes a first-person POV lets you cut corners. True. They know things, they don't rise to the forefront. However, if the POV is third or the character does not know these things, you need to sort it. You need to.
True.
I disagree. Because most people make this assumption that third is somehow different than first. And that is not always the case. A close third is indistinguishable from first.
From first person, yeah. It again, it depends on what you're writing and how you're writing it. And
I write third person, and it is always in the head of the character. There's nothing external. So when you're that close, first and third are interchangeable.
Is Terry disagreeing with me because it's me, or does he really?
No.
Can it be both?
It could be both. Both is good. No, but you're right. You're right. The distance of your third person definitely has an impact, and a very close third person is indistinguishable from first. No, James, it's not like third and first base, because
Everybody knows the difference between first and third base.
do they though? I think they're I think there are multiple interpretations on how that moves through, depending upon personal experience and various anecdotes.
Maybe in a hockey romance they don't know.
But baseball, they totally do.
Oh,
No,
They know what to do with the bats in baseball romances.
And cricket. But anyway, I don't. Are there? There's probably cricket romance.
There probably is. I
There
would say
totally is.
there's got to be. There's got to be.
Jared says, so that is the difference between third omniscient and third limited.
Yep.
Yeah.
To
To a
by and
degree.
large.
Yeah, to a degree. You can have various degrees of third. You have omniscient, which is literally looking down on the scene. But you can also have somewhat closer than omniscient, but it's still not actually in the person's head. Third is very flexible, depending on how you want to use it. If you look at Nora Roberts, she is close third person, but in the same paragraph, she's jumping from person to person to person to person in their heads. And it can become very confusing if you're not used to reading her.
Yeah, there's a trick to figuring out how you want to tell the story, and I don't really think about it too much. I write mainly third close. But every now and then I will have the narrator step back. And sometimes because of the way I write, being suspense, there's some things that I need to show the audience that none of the characters can see. None of the characters can see. So at that point, I'm free to do whatever the hell I want. It's how you get the scenes like in The Black where I'm talking about the AUV doing its scan and describing the fish that's there, and describing how these things work and what the fish is doing and why it's doing what it's doing, because I needed that to show what was about to happen and give the reader a clue what's going on. And those are the times where you can wax poetic or pedantic about something and really put your kind of personal stamp on it and describe that scene that way. And I don't get too many of those opportunities. I really don't, in the way I write. So the majority of the time it is closed third, but because I'm writing suspense, the narrator has every once in a while has to say something that the other characters can't know about. So it just depends on what you're writing. Nobody will understand the rules of cricket. I'm not sure you understand. Your entire island understands the rules of cricket, and y'all invented it.
And I had a student years ago, and sweet, mild man. She recently got her doctorate because she's amazing. But she was an avid cricket fan. And I remember one afternoon, there were a bunch of our student employees sitting in our front office, and she was desperately trying to explain the rules of cricket to them, and it did not go over well. It just, for a group of biochemistry majors and computer science majors and engineering majors, it was too complex. And she was like, I don't understand. I'm like, it's okay. Maybe it's just beyond them.
Matt says, okay, being from the UK, we know the reference, but exact detail on what counts as first and third, other than who, what, and I don't know.
That feels like an After Dark question.
Yeah, it does.
It kind of does, you know.
Kind of does.
First
If
is
you-
I,
if-
second is you, third is we, they.
If you have to feel out the difference between first and third, I think you may get it. You just don't realize you get it.
Are we talking about bases?
I know,
or are
I
we
said it
talking
that
about
way
person? I'm
intentionally.
confused. I honestly am confused at this
What
point what he
game
was
are we
talking
playing?
about.
What game is this anyway?
What was it? First base is kissing, second base is fondling, third base is well, who did you, and then fourth base is home.
Something like that, yeah.
Something.
Maybe V will explain it to you in After Dark.
Jerry Hanley says cricket does not have rules. It's all a big lie to trick British colony countries.
You know, there may be something to that.
There probably is.
Okay, that's a missed joke. I meant as in baseball or about being with a partner. Okay, so yeah, I sorry, I ran over the reference. I just find it very interesting what people can do with third person and how they do it. Stephen King has a tendency to just go all over the place sometimes. Like he'll have a scene where I think one of the most infamous ones for me is in Needful Things, where, and he does this in Salem's Lot too, where in one chapter he will talk about 15 different people. And he'll give like 2 paragraphs of what that person did that day. And there's a reason why he's doing that. It's because he's showing the slow dissolution of the town. He's showing it slowly self-combusting and what these people are doing, you know, who gets this, who gets that. And sometimes these are characters you never met. They're mentioned in passing, you know, oh, the maintenance man did this. Well, who the fuck is the maintenance man? Well, he apparently is this guy and this is what he does and now he's a vampire. You know, there's stuff like that where it's explaining the cast of characters that may not even be tertiary, that may be quaternary back there, but they still have a part to play, in the sense that you're trying to show that crumbling of a society, even if it's just a micro society, starting to show that off. And sometimes I can see why you would do that. And it never bothered me when he did, but he's kind of infamous for it in some of his books. Even shit. Now I think about it, I can't really think of a book where he doesn't do that, except for maybe It. Huh. Interesting. Anyway, oh, and of course, who is on first? What's on second? I don't know. Who's on third? Abbott and Costello. I missed that too.
You are way behind, pal.
I am. I'm sorry. I'm tired. James says, but sometimes King drives me nuts where he spends 3 pages describing someone, then they die horribly. Yeah. There's a scene in Gare's Inferno where there's a guy who's just minding his own goddamn business in an office and making jokes about this, that, and the other. And little does he know there's basically an explosion about to occur in the place that he's working. But I needed to show that to kick off the firestorm that was coming. I needed to show that. So I think I spent 1,200 words with him and then axed him. But I didn't describe his death. It's just, and suddenly the world was filled with light. You know, that's all you got to say.
Yeah.
Really.
Sometimes you need those characters to kind
It
of serve as
informs
a
the reader.
Yeah, they need to serve as a catalyst for the bigger chunk of the story.
Yeah.
One of the series that I'm watching right now, that happened. It was in like the first scene or two. There were these 2 characters. One of them winds up being a major secondary character, and the other, I was like, oh, he's just, you know, it's like the amount of time and the dialogue and the way that they focused on the character and brought him in. I'm like, oh, this is totally someone who's going to be here. Nope, he gets hit by a car and dies. And I'm like, what the shit? That was not cool. He was like, I wanted to see more of this guy. Nope.
And you find out 200 pages later, we find out more about this guy.
No, we find the situation. This is part of in this story, the secondary character is a vampire and he tries to save his friend by turning him. Can't turn him. The guy who gets hit by the car dies. But it's the act of why this victim, why this guy can't be turned and why he dies, that winds up being a nugget of information that turns into a whole subplot.
Right.
So, yeah, I was mad. I was like, this seems like lazy writing. But no, it's not. Because now you have a reason to care about the guy who didn't make it. And why didn't he make it? Well, because there's this problem here and it's going to affect other people in the story.
Yeah, and sometimes that can be the start of the book, so to speak. And you get a flavor for that person because you want to show that this person was this kind of person before all the hell broke loose.
Yeah.
James says it might have been Perfect Storm or Needful Things, but I remember reading the whole life of a person and then she gets beaten to death by the villain by a cane. That was not Needful Things. I guarantee you that. I know that book back to front. Just ridiculous. because I had it on audiobook, and all my trips to Colorado from Houston to go to school and everything, it was Tommyknockers, the Wastelands, and Needful Things were my go-tos for staying awake. So I listened to them multiple times. There's no Crane in Needful Things. Wow, we chewed this up big time. We didn't even stay on topic, really.
We did.
Wait a minute. Do we even see the topic other than screaming past it at 90 miles an hour?
Sort of.
Well, we saw it and went, oh, yeah, that's art shit. Never mind. We can cover the dancing monkey in another episode, especially once V starts dancing for reals.
Wow, that's an After Dark sort of thing.
That does feel like an After Dark sort of thing.
I meant her Patreon, but
I don't dance that well.
I don't either.
I claim not to dance that well. Let's try that.
I have 4 left feet. Not just 2, 4.
You know that it's actually that's on brand for you, really.
It kind of is, actually. It kind of is. That says everything right there.
It totally does. Totally.
There were some other jokes up here I somehow missed.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, JR says Game Lit and Lit RPG sell well, Terry.
I'm sure that they do for the limited markets that they are aimed at. While they're excellent stuff, there's a lot of competition in there, and it's a lot narrower than it is with the space opera and science fiction wider genres that I aim for.
Chernobyl folk dancing.
That's hot.
So instead of taps on the shoes, you have Geiger counters. That's what I'm hearing. So every time you tap the soil, you find out how.
You don't need to even tap. You just start walking, and it'll get the rhythm going right there.
Don't pet the deer. Don't pet the deer. It snorted my coffee. Damn you, Terry. Sounds like something from Fallout. Yeah, it does actually, doesn't it? Chernobyl
Talent
folk
night.
dancing. Good God. You people are just so wrong. Let's see, Roddy Rooster says, I'm a dancing monkey and feel ignored. Well, you're not dancing in the right places. That's all I can tell you. Either that or you're not asking for enough bananas. I'll let you take that however you like. Fallout is the shit. I would love to write in that IP. Create your own IP. It can be similar.
Mm-hmm.
File off the serial numbers. Go for it.
It is a thing. Oh, man.
Well, we've been out this for 58 minutes now.
Jeez. What is wrong with us?
I don't know. Patrons. Folks, you got anything else you want us to babble about real quick? Call it in lift. Instead of Fallout, in lift. Oh, Lord. So sad. So wrong. Lift in. Lived in. Just call it that.
Lived in?
Lived in. It could be all about a nuclear shelter. Don't you think? No?
There are a couple naming options, I bet. But
Probably several. Of course, I'm not witty enough to think of them right now. But I like that.
I'm coming up with inappropriate ones, so that's my problem.
Raise into. That's not a great title, James. That doesn't catch ya.
Oh,
That's a putty. That doesn't catch you either.
she's judging you from her little cave.
That's what I see when I look over. It says, in my cave.
So much fluffy judgment.
Well, if you have a comment or question about this episode, go to DebRobotsSociety.com, punch that contact button, and send us an email or leave a comment on this post at our website. Or you can leave a post on YouTube, where you can find us at youtube.com/DRS Podcast, where we are live every Saturday at 3 p.m. CST. Like and subscribe so you know when we're live. And also, we have a Discord. The link is in the show notes. So if you want to be with a community of whack jobs, come on over and play in our sandbox. And let's see, if you want to support the show, you can find us at patreon.com/DRSpodcast and buymeacoffee.com/DRSpodcast, where for as little as $1 a month, you get access to exclusive live shows like the one that's coming up in 9 minutes and 50 seconds.
And if you need to have first, second, third base, and a home run explained to you, please email Paul and ask for a more detailed explanation.
Or you can listen to the play-by-play in the middle of Paradise by the Dashboard Light, because why not? Go listen to Meatloaf.
And at the $10 level, you get your name read. Our $10 patrons are Juan Valentin, James Terrell, Antoine Batts, Tony L. Joy, Rick Shaw, Lisa Slack, Isabel Cushy, and Tim Niederreiter. Thank you to all of our patrons for making this show possible. Now,
What?
enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Have a great weekend. Be safe, be warm, all those good things, and dream of large people.
Okay.
I don't know why I said that. I really don't.
Princess
I
Bride.
have
It was Princess Bride,
Nothing-
actually.
Totally Princess Bride.
so basically ROUSs.
This one, Carrie Ellis is standing over Andre the Giant and says, be
Yes.
good or something like that, and dream of large women. Anyway, on that note, we're getting the hell out of here. Glad you enjoyed the show, folks, and we will see you next week.